Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander is underwritten by Task Performance.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Fall in love with autumn with PJ's new seasonal lattes. Our pumpkin latte brings you all the flavors of a pumpkin pie with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, like your favorite holiday dessert in a cup. And our s'mores latte with flavors of toasted marshmallows, warm milk chocolate, and graham cracker cinnamon is sure to bring back campfire memories. The PJ's Fall Seasonal Lattes, available at your local PJ's only for a limited time.
But here's the bottom line. You say that. Let me tell you. Well, good evening, and welcome to a very patriotic 4th of July episode. I cannot wait for this one. I'm your host, Scott Alexander. I want to wish everybody out there a happy and safe 4th of July. Obviously, it's tomorrow, but I know a lot of you have already started getting your 4th on and throughout the rest of the week. So enjoy, have fun, enjoy your barbecues, although with a little bit of rain in South Louisiana, but most of all, be safe. Hey, by the way, yesterday, if you're a basketball fan, it was one of the craziest days in NBA free agency history. It was nuts, and particularly for a team called the New Orleans Pelicans. This had to be one of the craziest days, period, in their history. But first, I'm going to take you back to Sunday, because that's when the ball got rolling. LeBron James, obviously the biggest name on the free agent market, well, he signed with the Los Angeles Lakers, and that was not totally unexpected. A lot of people thought he might feel out Cleveland, maybe Boston, and obviously looking over at Philadelphia as well. But he decided to go out west and enjoy himself. He signed a 4-year deal, so he's going to be there maybe till the end of his career. But hey, by the way, the Pelicans, not to be outdone on Sunday, well, they signed a LeBron-like figure. Elfrid Payton, the point guard from the Phoenix Suns. I kid a little bit, but Elfrid is a former top 10 pick. Remember, he got picked by the Magic, and this might surprise you. For everybody that thinks he's definitely coming in to be a backup, Elfrid started 253 of the 300 games he's been in the NBA. He thinks he's going to be a starter, I can promise you that. So that should have gotten everyone thinking that just maybe Rajon Rondo might be headed elsewhere. And I got to tell you, now that I've seen all this happen, you knew that the Pelicans picked up Payton because Rondo did go elsewhere. He joined LeBron out in L.A., so everyone assumed with Boogie Cousins' relationship with Rajon Rondo that he was going to join them in L.A. and they were going to work out something for their salary cap. Well, guess what? Yep, he didn't. He actually put the biggest bombshell out there in the recent free agency history, and from now on, this will be called the Boogie Bomb, because everyone was shocked that he took only $5.3 million next season to sign with the Golden State Warriors. The Hamptons 5, already the best team on the planet, one of the very best teams in history, and now they just might have that title, because this, when he gets healthy, will be unbelievable. When you're joining him with 4 other guys that were all-stars last year, only the second time that 5 guys that were all-stars the year before, and that includes, obviously, Boogie, will be on the same team. Unbelievable. Hey, by the way, Jake Madison from Locked On Pels, Bryan Bienemy from the Sports Hangover on ESPN Radio, they're going to join me, and we're going to have a long roundtable about this. This is a pre-4th of July show, and also I'm going to have Rob Kelly, who is a Washington Redskin running back. He had that fantastic rookie year 2 years ago, former Tulane running back. He's going to join us as well. Hey, by the way, the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame this weekend inducted athletes, coaches. They had 2 Super Bowl champions. They had a World Series champion. They had an NBA champion. But they also had many former inductees that I was thrilled to be able to be around. One of them was one of my all-time favorites. Some say now that Billy Cannon has died that this is the greatest living Tiger. His name is Tommy Casanova, and he was unbelievable. He was there as well as Willis Reed. By the way, Willis Reed, First of all, Casanova was known. Let me go back to Casanova. He was known as the best player in the country by Sports Illustrated. That's on that Sports Illustrated. He became a perennial Pro Bowler with the Cincinnati Bengals, and he even left the NFL early so he could become a doctor, which he is now. But Willis Reed, who you saw, was also there. He's a former inductee, two-time NBA champion, and is famous for limping on the court, of course, against the Lakers there, against Will Chamberlain, and beating them. They won 2 years in a row. Also, James Shaq Harris, the first black quarterback in the history of the NFL. It was such a treat to be able to talk to him. And the people that were inducted, Reggie Wayne, Brandon Stokely, Steve Gleason, who's such a Saints hero, and how about NBA champion Larry Wright? And World Series, how about this? Russ Springer, former LSU superstar with Ben McDonald, he took them to the World Series. He went to the World Series with the Braves. He won it with the D-backs. Remember Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling, and of course the Astros in 05. And by the way, World Cup, the knockout round, the two best players are out. Cristiano Ronaldo, gone. Lionel Messi, gone. And how about this? Host Russia, they stunned Spain, and poor North America. Officially all out now because Mexico loses 2-0 to Brazil, so they're done. And yesterday, the thrilling Belgium over Japan, that was remarkable, 2-0 with 30 minutes to go, and they won 3-2. By the way, Wimbledon has started, and that's the granddaddy of all tennis courts. We're going to tell you that, all tournaments. We'll get to that. CWS, the College World Series, is over, and Oregon State is the champion. Who could forget this drop pop-up? Horrible for Arkansas. They were trying to get there first. They did not. And by the way, we have some sad news to pass on to you. One of our great, great friends, Rick Gailey, the former legendary coach at St. James and other schools, and he's been on this show and many others many times. Well, he passed away of pancreatic cancer, and our prayers with him and his family. Here we have a great show for you, though. We're going to be back here in just a couple minutes. You're watching Primetime Sports. We'll be back. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. I thought this might be my second guest segment, but after what happened yesterday in free agency in the NBA, this is the news of the day in New Orleans. You know what I'm talking about. I mentioned it in the open. The Pelicans' future, I guess, that we became frenzied because I think a lot of people thought that Rajon Rondo would come back to the Pelicans after the great playoff season he had, and then Boogie Cousins, well, they figured the market wasn't going to be too great for him. They said, hey, he'll probably come back as well. Check off, wrong and wrong. They're both gone, one to the Lakers, of course, one to the Warriors. That was the big shock of the day. But the Pelicans weren't left high and dry. They did salvage something, getting the Lakers' leading scorer and rebounder, Julius Randle, to come. He's a young guy. We're going to get into that in a second because I have two of my favorites. Two guys that I follow on Twitter religiously, two guys that I love to hear on the radio. One is with the Sports Hangover. That's Bryan from New Orleans East, Bryan Bienemy, and Jake Madison with Locked On Pels. He was with Bourbon Street Shots for a long time. Both of these guys have made their mark in the local basketball scene, and I'm very honored to have them both for this very, very unusual day. So here you go. First of all, welcome.
Thank
Bryan,
you so
good to see you again. Jake, it's great to have you back. First of all, I'm going to start with you. You've been on the show a little more. Crazy, crazy day. What were your thoughts around 5 to 8 p.m. last night?
Yeah, you know, this all happened in a short period of time for the Pelicans, too. Losing Rondo, signing Randle, kind of getting on this roller coaster with it all accumulating with DeMarcus Cousins heading to the Golden State Warriors. So, look, like you said, they salvaged part of this. This isn't great for New Orleans. I'm high on Julius Randle. He's a very good young player. He's going to mesh well with Anthony Davis in this offense that they run. But losing the veteran leadership in Rondo, what he brings is a big blow to this team. He taught them a lot. That laser focus you saw from them late in the season, largely due to him. You know, DeMarcus Cousins is still DeMarcus Cousins. This is one of the guys that was Anthony Davis's best friend. Obviously, they thought he was going to be here, but that injury is killer. Achilles and things like that are not easy to come back from if you're a big man. That kind of casts the future in doubt, and now we've seen it kind of shake up the landscape of the NBA.
Bryan, I have to say something because as a former agent, I got a call from one of my friends about 30 minutes before it became public. It's almost going to be well, not quite the proportion of where were you when John F. Kennedy was shot, but where were you when you heard the Boogie news? Because I'm going to say something funny. I'm at the gym, I'm working out, and I get my phone, I'm having it handy. It's a text. He goes, "You're not going to believe this. Boogie's going to the Warriors." And I just wanted to tell everybody. He goes, "You cannot tell a soul." So sure enough, I continue the workout, and literally 30 minutes later, almost to the minute, you hear the whispers in the gym. "Did you hear where Boogie's going?" And people just gasping and going, but that's kind of what it was everywhere. We all saw the video last night of Jaren Jackson Jr. When he was at the Summer League game, and he got word from the reporter, and he just started cracking up and covering his mouth. What was your reaction when you heard this? Because we all kind of assumed maybe it was the Lakers once that Julius Randle signed with the Pelicans, but what were you thinking?
Actually, to be honest with you, I kind of was maybe not saying Golden State would be that team, but definitely shocked and surprised that they were the team that he went to. As you stated, Lakers were probably one of the top teams we thought that he'd go to. But Golden State is actually a good move, but I don't know if people are maybe over-anticipating what this is going to be, considering the Achilles injury Jake spoke about earlier. It's kind of hard to say a guy maybe coming back December, January, that he's going to make that much of an impact. And then, of course, 6'11", 270-plus pounds. He has to get into basketball shape, and not just basketball shape, Golden State Warrior basketball shape, meaning that he's got to get up and down the floor. Still a lot of questions about Boogie Cousins, but it's still shocking news, and it kind of tilts the balance of the NBA even more in Golden State's favor.
Well, what was your initial reaction? I mean, I want to hear, because, once Randall came in, you're thinking, okay, there's no way they're going to do this. Maybe the injury is worse. What's going on here? Because it seemed like it was predetermined. Once Rondo signed with the Lakers, all of a sudden you got the domino, even though they don't play the same position. Mm-hmm. Randall's coming here, so you put two together. It's like, okay, Boogie's going to probably follow him. When you heard the words Golden State Warriors come through your Twitter or however you heard it, what was your first thought?
First thought was, how the heck did that happen?
Exactly.
Because I'm trying to put it together in the idea of, I know the Pelicans put out a really good offer to Boogie Cousins, and then the numbers come out, and you're looking at $5.3 million lower mid-level exception for him, and I'm like, my God, what just took place? Because it's almost as if there's Petty and then there's Boogie Cousins. And
right.
He just took it to a totally different level of, I'm going to show you better than I could tell you. You're not going to give me the offer that I wanted. I feel, quote unquote, disrespected. So I'm going to take my ball and go home. And for a guy that's so emotional and bases everything on loyalty, I didn't think he was very loyal to the Pelicans at that moment.
I'm going to say this. Twitter kept me up all night. And normally I can shut that down, but I was just immersed in it. And next thing I know, it's 1:32, 2:33. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go to sleep. But I'm going to say this. The thing that blew it up the most was when Mark Spears came out, a Louisiana native, by the way, and it seems like he's become a close confidant of Boogie's. Obviously, he's in the media. But when he said that he was asked on SportsCenter, and he says Boogie got no offers from anybody else. And I know there's a fine line between saying official offer with paper, with a signed contract. I think that's the semantics we're talking about. Or you taking calls. But that blew it all up.
Yeah, that's a semantics thing and a technicality. Technically, no one can sign anyone right now because they're in the moratorium period and you can't make deals official until July 6th anyway. So,
but Boogie got offers.
He had offers.
Let's be honest.
There were phone conversations. He had an idea of what the Pelicans wanted to offer him before free agency even started.
Sure.
Remember, he was on the team last year. They could talk to him while other teams couldn't. He knew what their number was. That was lower than what he wanted. He started talking to other teams. There was very serious interest from the Lakers before they signed LeBron James there, when they thought they needed to add another star alongside him. Then when the Julius Randle move happened for New Orleans, they made him another offer, more than what the Golden State Warriors offered him. But at that point, he was kind of upset. He felt insulted, like you said. This was kind of an emotional move for him. It was a bit of a spite move for him. And he kind of just wanted to show up the Pelicans a little bit, and he did it with the best team in the league that makes them even better. Yes, it's going to take a while for him to come back. Certainly, he's not going to be playing till December at the earliest for them. But now, he only needs to be ready for the playoffs for the Warriors. That's a scary proposition. They don't need him at all during the regular season. And one of the ways the Warriors have been just a little bit vulnerable in the playoffs is with a big bruising center in the mold of DeMarcus Cousins. It's why the Pelicans went and traded for him 2 seasons ago to kind of go against the grain, against what the Warriors were doing small ball wise. Now, all of a sudden, to beat the Warriors in the playoffs, you got to have a big center. They made this a whole lot harder for teams around the league.
Well, I'm going to say this. This is New Orleanians, and I include myself in that. We're very fickle. But I have to lead the way for almost 3 decades, so I can kind of step on the outside and see this. I'm going to take the Boogie side. It might not be popular, less than 24 hours happened, but let's think about what Boogie's thinking. He says, okay, I came in here. I was pretty much a good soldier. Maybe I got a lot of texts early on, but I kind of got my act together. This team won 7 out of 8. I was putting up historic numbers, almost 6 assists a game, to go along with, say, 25 and 13. This hasn't happened, and I go hustle for a missed free throw at the end of our biggest win of the season at that point against the Houston Rockets, and I get hurt. He's thinking maybe you should be loyal to me and offer me the same max contract you would have offered before. And I'm playing the boogie side as if I'm on part of the interruption. So my point is like, he's like, when he gets that first offer, he's like, whoa. And then, we were making a lot of fact about it. Maybe we should have listened in when he took himself off the Pels Instagram. But the fact is, he was hurt. And he was like thinking, okay, I'm going to shop myself around. Dallas was showing a lot of interest. And obviously Mark Cuban's got the cash and the room at the time. And he was thinking that might be it. So when it came down to it, I think as a guy who was a starter in the All-Star game this year, who was named to be before he got hurt, so I think his feelings were a little bit hurt. And I want to take you first on this. If you're Boogie Cousins and you're coming from this, and then you realize you're not getting the money you want, you have to prove yourself, a good landing spot might be the World Champions, where some people might say you're chasing a ring, but others might say, when I'm finally healthy, I have a couple more months to showcase what I can do for the rest of the public to see for next year.
I think it would be a totally different story if we're talking about a healthy Boogie Cousins that decided to walk off and say, I'm going to go and chase the money in the ring.
Oh, then we'd all be angry.
Exactly. It's a
be.
little bit different in that scenario, but it's the reality that you're not healthy. And if you were 100% healthy, you got a 5-year, $175 million max from the Pelicans waiting on you. So I'm not sure if Boogie can really look at it from a wide scope and say, you know what? Maybe the Pelicans disrespected me. Well, the entire league felt the same way because nobody was willing to give you that type of money at the time. And it's oddly enough that the teams that you mentioned, the Dallas Mavericks, the Lakers, even partly the Brooklyn Nets, Atlanta Hawks, those were teams that popped up lately. And it's like, okay, well, none of these teams are willing to give
Celtics.
you.
Celtics. I see the uniforms with the Celtics in some kind of sign and trade or something.
Exactly. So you're seeing a bunch of teams out there, but no one is willing to offer you that same max that you would have got prior to the Achilles injury. I'm a little bit upset with Boogie from a landscape of Boogie had every opportunity to come back to the Pels, start it all over again, do the same thing here, and if you play halfway decent, every other team in the league is going to look at you and say, you know what, let's give that guy a max deal.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is Boogie's an emotional guy. We've learned this from him, and you need to play to that a little bit. And on the opening night of free agency, even though he already had an offer, he wanted to be wooed by the Pelicans a little bit. Yeah. He wanted to be chased. This is his first time really as an unrestricted free agent to kind of get those meetings, get kind of everything that comes with it. And the Pelicans met with Elfrid Payton instead of him, giving him a phone call about an hour or so after midnight when free agency opened. Probably not the move there. I think that's really where this whole relationship kind of soured a little bit. Yeah, the money could have been fine for 1 year. He had an offer of at least double, more than that really, than what the Golden State Warriors played him from New Orleans. But they didn't approach it necessarily in the right capacity, the right way, and I think that also just kind of led to this exit. And it was reported, not from Spears, who was very much in the DeMarcus Cousins camp and almost a mouthpiece of him for him times,
no doubt,
that, the only 2 teams in the running for Cousins were the Warriors and the Celtics, not even the Pelicans, who made him the biggest offer.
Well, we heard from his manager, who is, by the way, one of his boys over at Kentucky, Rogers, and he says, there's a boogie bomb coming.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, $5.3 million is a boogie bomb. I mean, if you reportedly, maybe the Pelicans offered $15 to $20 million for 1 year. I don't know if we'll know that, if Dell Demps is going to come out and say it or not, because Dell Demps is right now getting crucified by a lot of people nationally, mostly people I would think that should know better, right? I mean, go ahead. What were you about to say something?
The way this kind of looks out, if you want to look at through the optics of it, it's reporters' jobs to report what they hear, and if someone spoke to Cousins, they're going to report what he told them.
No doubt.
It's not their job necessarily to defend the Pelicans or defend the team. That's on the team to do it themselves. And right now, there's only one side of the story talking, so it's not complete, but it's the only side we have so far, and maybe the other side comes out eventually.
Bryan, okay, now I'm going to say this. Boogie was not there during the playoff run. The one key piece Rondo's missing. Okay, let's be honest. This is a big, big piece. Rondo did not have a great regular season. I didn't think so. He had some sparks where he was great, but he wasn't great over 82 games. He was fantastic in the playoffs, fantastic in the month of March as well. Where does this leave this team as a whole? Because you are bringing in a guy to help give support. Now your backcourt's your front court's pretty solid. I mean, as far as the big guys. And the wing's still, a mystery. But you have, obviously, Nico coming back as your stretch four. But you also added Beef and a guy that can score and is young, and Julius Randle, of course, with the best player potentially in the league next season, Anthony Davis. So in your mind, where does this leave the Pelicans?
it leaves them looking for still the same needs they had prior to. They're still going to need a point guard because, as we learned, Drew Holiday is really not the guy you want at point
What
all the
about
time.
Elfrid Payton?
Elfrid Payton,
He was a top 10 pick 3 years ago.
I think he can be more of a Rondo type of guy, but that's not the guy you really want starting. Will he play better in this fast-paced offense?
That's the key right there.
Absolutely, but he still has to do something that he hasn't done yet, and that's be able to shoot at least at a decent clip to keep teams honest. I haven't seen him do that, and he definitely has to work more on his defense. He was a great defensive player in college, not so much in the pros.
But let me give devil's advocate to this, because I'm not taking up for Elfrid Payton. I just want to say one thing. Almost every team not named, say, the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics, and I'm including Houston in this, has to take some risk of some kind. I mean, you actually do. So in your mind, where does this leave them?
Yeah, it is a risk, and the Pelicans obviously would have liked to have had Rondo and Elfrid Payton here and have Payton kind of solidify that third point guard role for him, which is what they've been looking for a long time. So they bought low on him, on a guy that has some upside. They kind of did a similar desperation type move with DeMarcus Cousins.
$2.7 million.
It's nothing.
I mean, this is nothing.
It's nothing.
Rondo got $9 million. You cannot fault the guy for going to LA.
And the Pelicans didn't actually have $9 million to offer him. There was nothing they could have done to kind of keep him here if it was all about money to him, and it was $400,000 more than what the Pelicans could offer.
There's a guy named LeBron he can play with too.
Yeah, like there's tons of reasons for this, but the Pelicans, I think, feel comfortable with Elfrid Payton maybe running the offense a little bit. I think that's a little bit more comfortable than they should be, but they're going to try and solidify that point guard position, whether through a trade or maybe a minimum guy on free agency to add some depth to him. But he does provide a lot of what Rondo does. He doesn't bring the leadership. He doesn't bring the off-court stuff which is very important. But if that all rubbed off from Rondo to the rest of this team, I think they can kind of get by with that. Randall, though, you can easily make a claim right now that at the start of next season, the Pelicans have a better roster on the court with Randall and Payton than they would have with Rondo and Cousins. That's based off of Cousins isn't going to be on the court to start the season.
I can make this argument. I get where you're going.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whether they'll be a better team at the end of the season with Randall and Payton than they would have been with Rondo and a healthy Cousins, that's the one that's up in the air that we don't know, and we won't know till the end of this coming year. So there's still a lot of question marks around this team. But certainly the addition of Randall, while a bit of a risk because you don't have his bird rights, it remains to be seen if they're going to be able to re-sign him after next year where he is a player opt-out, is a big question mark. If it doesn't work out, you're kind of in a bad situation. But certainly this year, this is going to be a very fun team to watch. And Randall and Payton both fit very well in a faster-paced, up-tempo style. And Randall, when you're looking for bigs to pair next to Anthony Davis, though he doesn't have the shooting that DeMarcus Cousins has, you can't find much better than Julius Randle and the different things that he does.
He's young and he's improving. His year last year was much better than his previous. Hey, one thing, I don't want to get into this discussion, but Frank Jackson, by the way, I want to remind y'all, I know he's not a pure point guard. He's kind of like a Drew Holiday type where he's going to play both if he has to. But he was the MVP, co-MVP of the McDonald's All-American game. He won the McDonald's Jam Fest. The guy has got a lot of athletic ability. Would have been a mid-first rounder had he not had the injury where he was picked early second round the previous. So this is a guy you forget that's still there. But you both might have one point guard, maybe in a dream scenario. I'm not talking about Kemba Walker yet, but I'm talking about a guy that may want to join Anthony Davis on the cheap with the possibility of becoming a starter. I'm going to give you both the floor for 30 seconds. Who would be your guy and who would be yours?
I think Dante Exum. I think he has a lot of untapped potential, still young.
Top 5 pick, by the way.
Yeah, injuries have basically ruined his career, but I think that's a guy in that pace and space offense that could really make a difference, especially if he gets a chance to start.
You have one?
Yeah, I mean, I think Exum's going to end up costing more than what the Pelicans have to offer. A realistic option is going to be Tim
dreaming.
Frazier.
It doesn't matter.
No, he'd be a great fit. I agree. He shows a lot of potential. I'm very high on him. Tim Frazier is a name that you'll see probably linked to the team very soon. He's a veteran minimum guy. If you're looking to the trade market, look at the Los Angeles Clippers who kind of need to blow up their roster. Milos Theodosic does a lot of what Rondo does. He's got good size in the backcourt.
He's fun to watch.
Excellent passing guy. He's a lot of fun. I think that might be someone they look to target.
Any other, obviously the 3 is still a little bit of a hole. Any other guys, I'm Solomon Hill, you're hoping is going to come back and play, but he doesn't give you that wow factor at the 3 that a lot of teams give you. Anybody out there?
I think Rodney Hood is a name that we should keep an eye on because I think he really got a bad rap over in Cleveland. What we saw him do in Utah was really well.
By the way, 30 points right here. Remember this game?
Oh, yeah.
I was there. 30 on the Pelicans, 12 of 14 from the field.
Much better player in Utah than he was for Cleveland. I really think Cleveland didn't have an idea of how to properly use him, especially with LeBron on the floor. So I think he's a guy that we should look to. Luke Baamute is another guy. He's a 3-and-D type of guy. He can play on the outside, can also be one of the,
as long as they don't look at the finals tape, we're good.
Correct. Maybe a better version of of a Solomon Hill, considering that, he is a little bit better defender, and he does hit a regular three-pointer every now and then, too.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of the situation the Pelicans find themselves in. They haven't had a very good wing in a very long time, and Solomon Hill, even when he's healthy, the defense he gives you is good. The offense just isn't there. And now with the loss of DeMarcus Cousins, you still need someone to kind of step up and provide that for you. I think they're going to have to really look to the trade market to kind of solidify this. Maybe look at Harrison Barnes on the Dallas Mavericks if you can package Hill, Mirotic, someone else in a deal to kind of bring in someone like that. I think that might be what it's going to take to really upgrade that position. But there's options. Luke Bahamute is a definitely good one. He's going to come in potentially on a veteran minimum deal. He's similar skill set to Solomon Hill, but frankly, just having more wings at this point is never a bad thing.
All right, I want to say something. We're going to go national now because 16 years ago, it would have been 16 years in about 2 months, LeBron came on a show the first time. I had him twice in Atlanta. He flew in from Akron. And the first time he was texting, and this was 2002 right here, and he says, I said, who are you texting? And he's a junior in high school. He's wearing a Jamal Crawford uniform, by the way. And he says, I'm texting with Kobe Bryant. So I had to laugh last night when I'm listening to a bunch of national shows and saying, oh, Kobe's going to be all upset. He's coming in. He's going to take his thing. And I'm like, dude, they love each other. They had their battles on the court, but you can see by many of these pictures, they have a mutual respect. And I heard Kobe on some interviews. He goes, please, I love the guy, and I can't wait for him. So LeBron and L.A., I'm both going to give you about 20, 25 seconds. What do you think?
I think it's a power move, and I think not only for LeBron on the court, but off the court as well. We know what he's going to do on the court. He's going to be a triple-double machine, leader of the Lakers. He's going to take those young guys that they have now and bring them to another level. We saw him take a ragtag bunch to the finals not once but twice. LeBron on court is going to be fine. LeBron off court couldn't learn from a better guy than Magic Johnson on how to be a better mobile.
Yes. And you're an L.A. guy.
Yeah,
you're
originally from there. But no, this move, it just shows me LeBron's comfortable with his legacy. This is a guy who doesn't think he has anything more to prove to go down as the best player of all time. That's not a team that's competing for the finals this year or likely next year, at least of how they're constructed right now. This was a move about his family, about the off-court stuff. He's comfortable with who he is, his career. You're kind of seeing it maybe hit the final chapter here in L.A. Maybe this is going to be his last contract there. Guy just, like I said, thinks he's got nothing else to prove and feels he's the best player of all time.
Now we're going to have some fun because there's still one name out there, not a free agent, but he is still tied to a team, but he does not want to play for them. You know where I'm going. Kawhi Leonard is a top 5 player in the NBA. Certainly when he's healthy, two-way player, he's the best, in my opinion, at least definitely for a non-inside player. Your thoughts on where he might be?
Hopefully he ends up in the Eastern Conference
Boston,
instead of something like that, which is better for the Spurs as well because you can send him over there, get a lot of pieces in return, and you don't have to worry about going through him.
There he is in different uniforms. I haven't touched up as a Celtic, touched up as a Sixer. That's the conference we want to be in, right?
Correct. And you want to take
we
the
don't
gamble.
want this one.
You want to take the gamble that the OKC Thunder did with Paul George, and the idea that you get him in your squad, you try to put him around the right pieces, maybe let him on a playoff run, and then you get to see a chance to play fun ball instead of Spurs basketball, which hasn't been too fun.
Well, he was the Finals MVP in Spurs ball. What could this guy do without it?
Oh, no, he's a great player. There's no doubt. Like you said, top 5 two-way player. He's one of the best defenders in the league. He's a tremendous offensive player, too, and anyone would be lucky to have them on their team. I think this is going to drag out a little bit more right now. We've seen LeBron isn't putting the pressure on the Lakers to make a move right now to give up young assets, future assets, to bring in a star. I think the Spurs have been able to mend relationships with upset players before. Look at LaMarcus Aldridge, who wanted out supposedly. A couple meetings with Popovich, and that kind of all went away, and he stayed there. So I think the Spurs are going to be banking on Popovich, banking on being able to do that. Ultimately, though, it really seems like he wants out, and hopefully he does end up in the Eastern Conference.
You know what? You probably didn't realize this was 22 minutes, did you? It feels like 10. It just flew by. And we had fun. By the way, I love giving these out because people that have not worn TAS before, when they put one of these on, they're like, oh, my goodness, they want to go buy some more. And maybe that's what TAS is trying to do when I give these to you. But here you go. Enjoy. I hope I gave you the right size. If not, I'll switch these up. And by the way, Shays de la Shays, one of my favorite places. Go give them a visit. It's right there on Maple between Carrollton and Broadway. And for y'all, please follow these guys. My man Jake Madison, he was with Bourbon Street Shots. Now he's on the air doing the podcast, Locked On Pels. He does a fabulous job. And I can't give you enough kudos, Bryan. You worked your way up over at ESPN. Congratulations to all that. He's with Gus Cattengill. What's up, Goose? On the Sports Hangover. So check him out. They're on from 12 to 3 every day. They got 3 hours. So these guys are awesome. That was a great segment, and I can't thank them both enough for coming. And now they both got to get back to work. So anyway, we'll be back. I've got Rob Kelly. Rob Kelly coming in. He is a Washington Redskin. 800 total yards in his rookie year. and he was hurt a little bit last year, but he's a former Tulane Green Wave guy. Seemed like he was around since the Bush administration, which he pretty was close. But anyway, we'll be right back, right here on Primetime Sports.
Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander is underwritten by Task Performance.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lanes, the home of rock and roll.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports, and for you Tulane fans, I am sorry to announce that Rob Kelly could not make it. He had some issues trying to get over the bridge. You know, he's an O. Perry Walker grad, so he lives on the West Bank and some issues over there. So anyway, maybe we'll get him on a future show. He is a Washington Redskin, and he is in that deep backfield. Remember, they drafted Darius Geist to be potentially their starter. He should have been a first-rounder, but he lasted until the 59th pick. And they also have Chris Thompson, who's a great third-down specialist. And don't forget Samaje Perine, who is Oklahoma's all-time leading rusher, and he is a beast as well. So they have a pretty crowded backfield. Rob Kelly was an undrafted free agent, of course, and he came on and did some big things. He had 700-plus yards in rushing, another 100 in receiving, and he had some big games. I remember that first year he had a 3-touchdown game on Sunday night. Remember that Packer game where he ran for 137? In fact, his first start was just 3 weeks before that in late October, 87-yard game and a touchdown against the Bengals. Last year, marred by some injuries, he did get put on injury reserve towards the end of the season, but he did have one big 2-touchdown game against the Seahawks. I do apologize, Tulane fans. I had the Tulane helmet back out, ready to go, and I was looking forward to it. Maybe we'll get him on in the future. By the way, his publicist also represents Alfred Payton, so we are working feverishly to get him on next week. I have a tentative yes on that. We shall see. And, of course, that is the new Pelicans point guard, and maybe we don't know. He might end up being the starter. Right now, he is probably projected to be a starter until they go find somebody else. But that segues into my next guest, which, by the way, was my last guest. One of the guys was thankfully enough for us able to stay, and we're going to talk more basketball. So for you basketball fans out there, this is going to be your treat because I got my man Bryan from New Orleans East is back.
Sir.
I'm out of Taz shirts, though, so you got one.
Oh, good enough.
No, I'm joking. But I will give you another gift certificate to eat. By the way, thank you again for coming.
No worries.
And staying.
No worries.
All right, let's continue because we might even have to touch some Saints. But let's get on to the Pels because we just mentioned point guard. And I know I like Alfred Payton, but if you're trying to go where the Pelicans want to go, which is now you've tasted the playoffs, you've tasted the second round, now the next progression would be at least to the conference finals, right? And you're trying to get that 2 seed. And that's your best bet to get there, to get home court for the playoffs. And maybe we all know it's a foregone conclusion that maybe Golden State. I've seen crazier things happen. Hey, don't forget the Lakers in '72 had Will Chamberlain. They started the season with Elgin Baylor. He ended up retiring during the season. They had Jerry West. They had all these people. They ended up winning that year, but they had all those guys the years before, and the Knicks beat them with Willis Reed, who, by the way, I got to meet this weekend. It was quite a thrill. But that said, is there a point guard out there that if they could maneuver certain things, like get some salary cap off and maybe trade some of the weight that they have that, I'm talking the Agences, maybe Solomon Hill even, I don't know. I'm not saying that he's not in their future, but I'm just throwing names out because you obviously have salary cap issues right now. Would there be a player out there that you think could be a fit, and why could they get him?
I think Kemba Walker's a guy that everybody kind of needs to pay attention to,
Well,
simply because of what's going on in Charlotte right now. Michael Jordan was rumored to be shopping him a little bit late last year, maybe around the trade deadline, and trying to see if there were any takers that were going to, bring him on. And it's kind of weird when you say it because he has a lot of Kyrie Irving in him, and the idea that he can get to the cup anytime he wants to. He has a decent enough outside shot to keep defenses honest. And of course, he's a big name star that's clutch when it counts most. And I think you put that with Anthony Davis and giving him the spacing that he needs because AD can operate down low, Kemba on the outside, and of course Drew Holiday is a pit bull on the perimeter. You have a really good start right there, and now we add the new pickup Julius Randle. Could be exciting times for the Pelicans if they can get a guy like Kemba Walker.
Okay, that would be a dream scenario because Kemba Walker, we all remember in 2011 that improbable run. Everybody says, "Oh, we knew it. They were a third seed. You didn't know it." That's one of the ones I can say I won that pool, but that he made that run in the Big East tournament before that. Remember the 6 overtime game? I mean, he is clutch, and he would be obviously a huge get, but. Right now, that's kind of a pipe dream, except for the fact when you start looking at it, many people were putting him in a Cleveland uniform about a month ago, saying he might be somebody they could team up with LeBron if he stayed in Cleveland, which he did not, we know. But how could the Pelicans do something like that? I mean, just think about the trade machine thing and what would need to work. He is an expiring contract, which is why it possibly could happen, because you don't just give away the Kemba Walkers of the world. Mitch Kupchak did come out and say, we love Kemba Walker, he's the face of the franchise, but we've heard stuff like this from GMs and coaches before, correct? And even owners. So let's just discount that part. If it were to happen, what could the Pels do that would be attractive for a team like Charlotte to take him?
Unfortunately, I think they'd have to also take back a bad contract. I know Kemba's expiring, but I think they'll have to get rid of guys, as you mentioned, maybe a Solomon Hill. You package him with a Jensen, and of course, draft picks. They're definitely going to want draft picks. Unfortunately for the Charlotte Hornets, if they take back a guy like that with the Solomon Hills, the Alexia Jensens, and even a draft pick, you're talking about 23 to possibly 30 because the Pels should be a playoff team, especially with Kemba Walker. So it's going to be a little bit difficult.
It's hard to sell that to the fans.
Exactly. But
I mean, you might have to give away like a Nico Mirotic even. But in that, you got to think after the way he played during the playoffs in that month of March, that's almost an untradeable thing. But you do have two power forwards now. I mean, really you have three. I mean, Anthony Davis is a power forward. He's going to have to play center. But you have, Randall can play center as well. He can play power forward. And Nico's a stretch. You kind of like that situation. But would you give up a Nico if you had to get Kemba Walker, who is a proven leader?
I think if you can get that kind of wink handshake deal in the back, that he'll be around to kind of stick around a little bit longer. Maybe you do that, but I'm not really sure if it's a one and done type of situation that you want to kind of put Kemba Walker on your plate when you know you can re-sign Nico Mirotic. I think he's a guy that kind of says the Pelicans rescued me when I was in a horrible situation in Chicago. I'll show them a little bit of loyalty by re-signing. He's not going to break the bank like maybe Kemba does for a max contract. So I think if it's giving up Nico, maybe you press the pause button a little bit, unless Kemba says I'll re-sign because I want to play alongside Anthony Davis.
Can I play devil's advocate with you?
Sure.
Because they're kind of going all in on Randall in a sense. I mean, it's only $9 million a year, but he's got a 2-year deal. But we know it's a 1-year deal because he's got the option next year. So he's on like a Nick Fairley prove-it deal, if you want to give a Saints analogy. Yeah. Because, hey, if he just blows up, and he obviously, the Kentucky, we know that Anthony Davis, it's been reported, recruited him hard probably when he heard from Boogie that he wasn't going to. This is a full Kentucky connection. They talk to each other. So Randall's kind of on this thing. Do you think the Pels, in the effort just to keep Anthony Davis happy, if you can pull a Kemba Walker for 1 year and you team him up with Randall and AD, and then you blow it up and then you kind of get some more good vibes and you have 50-something wins instead of 48, you may go to the conference finals. Would it be worth it then?
Of course it would. No question about that. At that point, you're talking about a team that's on the cusp of being, a championship contender. Now, all you need is a little bit of luck in the process. We saw Houston almost take out Golden State. So let's say Houston can take out a Golden State because they were so close. I know things are a lot different now that they have Boogie Cousins, but if Houston can take out Golden State and maybe the Pels can take out a Houston, then you're probably a lot closer than what you want it to be when you can run it back with Randall and Anthony Davis and Kemba Walker. Maybe you're a little bit luckier in that situation, and the Pels will have a lot of cap space in the 2019 season. So maybe you get lucky enough to say, if we can make this move and we get that handshake deal and maybe we can bring back Randall, maybe it's worth saying, let's take a gamble and get rid of Nikola Mirotic. But I don't know if that's enough to entice Michael Jordan to say, Nico for Kemba.
It'd be a tough sell for him. Because, listen, Jordan loves Kemba. We know that. Hey, by the way, we talked to some free agents when Jake was on just a little while ago. Guys that, you obviously, the attraction would be not money for these guys. It would be to play with Anthony Davis. I mean, you have to get a situation like Boogie did to go play for Golden State, because we're not Golden State here in New Orleans. But Anthony Davis is a big attraction. And if these guys aren't making the money elsewhere, maybe they would come in for a year or two to be able to play with Anthony Davis. Do you have any other guys that might fit that category in addition to the ones we already talked about last segment?
Yeah, I think a guy like Wayne Ellington may be somebody you can still. He's a nice outside shooter, which is something that the Pelicans are going to need.
North Carolina NCAA champion, 2009.
No question. So you need guys like that. I think if you're lucky, you get a guy like that. He can kind of play outside, spread the floor a little bit more.
He shoots.
Yeah, and he's in addition to where he doesn't take what Drew does away, because Drew is more of a perimeter defender, get to the cup. Wayne Ellington more of a spot-up shooter, so it doesn't clash when you have those guys on the court. And I think outside of the idea of selling Anthony Davis, you can sell Alvin Gentry's system. That pace and space offense, guys want to play in that because they see it in Golden State. They know it works. We've seen it work in Phoenix with Mike D'Antoni. We've seen it working, right now in Houston. Guys want to play that up-tempo, fun style of basketball, and I think that's also something you can sell, that, hey, you know what? We can pay you. You get playing time. Well, you can kind of cater to their egos a little bit and say, you know what? If you win here, then you could possibly set yourself up for a nice deal later on. I think maybe that's something you can sell to a guy's ego, that if you can win here, you can win anywhere.
Hey, I have to ask you, Alexi Agenza. I mean, he is making $6 million a year. He's making more than Boogie next year, okay?
Yeah, crazy.
But the fact is, he wasn't that bad. I mean, honestly, for a while, he was a serviceable backup. The guy had some skills offensively. He has a nice touch. Is he going to be playing here this year? I mean, he missed the whole last season. And if he doesn't, what about a guy like a Kyle O'Quinn, if they can get the money right for him and maybe, get rid of one of the contracts? I mean, Kyle O'Quinn's not a star, but you still need some more big beef, I think, in the middle here if Agenza is that. Because, listen, like I said, you really have three power forwards right now.
Yeah.
And they do different things, and two of them are capable of playing center. But what about this guy that played for the Knicks and was Elfrid Payton's teammate with the Magic?
I think you do all you can to get O'Quinn here. As you stated, he's a big body, can play that kind of bully role that we wanted to see Boogie Cousins play. I think as far as what happens with Agenza, unfortunately, I think he's gone. And even if he came back, I'm not sure if he's going to be there psychologically. We heard kind of rumors and innuendo about him possibly needing to see a psychiatrist, a sports psychiatrist, in order to kind of get past what was going on with him. I'm not really sure if mentally he's going to be able to kind of stand up to it, especially if early on he doesn't get the minutes that he thinks he should. You don't want a guy kind of stewing on the bench wondering what's going on with me. And I think at that point, it's time to kind of just see if you can get him out of here. Maybe a fresh start is best for everybody at that point.
By the way, I hate to throw rumors, but we were talking off camera. Let's just throw them out there quickly. Harrison Barnes and somebody else we were talking about.
Yeah, I've been
more wish list stuff.
Yeah, I've been getting a couple of calls and a couple of texts that's saying, they're hearing around, Airline Drive that the Pelicans are interested in trying to trade for a Harrison Barnes.
Which would be a perfect 3 for this team.
No question, especially being that he's played in Gentry's system before over there at Golden State.
Yes.
And also Nicholas Batum, and I like him a lot. He's always been a really good 3.
Very expensive when he went to Charlotte, right?
Indeed.
I mean, the Pelicans wanted him at one point.
No question, but I think the only question you have to worry about with Batum is what's going on with him psychologically, because he's a guy that seems to play better in contract years than he does when he's in a non-contract year.
So is this a contract year?
And it is. So I think that's what you look for.
It's weird how athletes are like that.
Yeah, I mean, strange. But I think those are two guys that would absolutely change the dynamic of even Anthony Davis thinking what this team can do to kind of put themselves on the next plateau to keep up with the Golden State, the Houston, the Lakers. If you can get a guy like Nicholas Batum, more importantly, if you can get Harrison Barnes from the Dallas Mavericks, I think you set yourself up well to kind of say, okay, now we have AD, Harrison Barnes, of course, Randall, Drew Holiday, and now you just need to find a point guard that's serviceable enough to get the ball to these guys and let them do what they do best.
Well, Bryan, Bienemy, you just had 36 straight minutes of FaceTime.
Nice.
I mean, that is not bad. You saved us. Rob Kelly, I'm sorry. I enjoy basketball, so we had fun talking. You're going to get Rob Kelly's gift certificate.
Awesome.
Just go twice. Just go 2 different times. It'll start you off. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you as always, my brother.
Thank you, man.
Yes,
Keep
sir.
doing what you do at ESPN, and I hope things work out for you, man. You deserve
Thank you,
it.
sir.
All right. Hey, by the way, Saints fans, I'm sorry we didn't touch on them just now, but once we start talking basketball, this thing could have gone till midnight. Hey, by the way, we will be getting the Saints. Training camp is only 4 weeks away. Not even that, like 3.5. So we are right around the corner. We're going to be hitting them hard. We got a lot of fun stuff. We got the governor coming in 2 weeks with Coach Ed Ogeron. That's right. We're going to do a segment with them together, then do a Coach O segment separately. We're going to get into LSU football. So football is around the corner, but this is basketball time because this free agency week was important to get on. So I hope you enjoyed that. But my next segment is something I wish I didn't have to do. I have Ken Trahan coming in to talk about our good friend who just passed away, Rick Gailey, who is one of our mentors. I mean, a great coach. He was an All-American golfer. He won 2 D2 championships in golf. The first student athlete at UNO, which was known as LSUNO, Dwayne Reball being the other, the basketball star. But he passed away from pancreatic cancer. So Ken Trahan, who did the 3 Tailgater show with him on WGSO, but known him for years. Kent's been on the prep level, and Rick Gailey is a prep legend as far as a coach. So we'll be right back with that right here on Primetime Sports.
The love of my life is a shady lady, turned me up just to bring me down. Used to be calm, but now she's crazy, I don't mind. She's not the love of my life anymore. Yup. Ha ha. I like this guitar.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. I want to thank my guests for coming today. This last segment is one I wish I didn't have to do, but a good friend of ours for the station, the shows that we have here on WLAE and CST, well, he passed away yesterday. His name is Rick Gailey. Actually passed away Sunday, and there was word that it might have even been earlier in the weekend, but that was erroneous. But he had pancreatic cancer, which all of you know that is a cancer that usually there are very few survivors, and Rick is one of the great guys I've ever met. Certainly in the town of New Orleans, an incredible athlete, multi-sport athlete, great golfer, very accomplished. The very first student athlete at LSU UNO, which became UNO, and obviously he became a great coach. 170 wins on the high school level at St. James, 3 state championship appearances, went to the playoffs just about all the time. He was in the semifinals, I think, like 9 more times. This guy was a tremendous coach, a tremendous leader. He loved his kids. And I only got to know him 6 years ago, and I got to tell you, he made an impact on my life as well. He's been on this show a couple times. I know he's been on Eric Asher's show many, many times. And the way he broke down a football game was one of the best I've ever heard. And I'm going to tell you this, every time he came on, I would get more and more texts and tweets and emails and people saying, wow, keep bringing that guy on. He knows what he's talking about. But none better to give him a tribute than one of his best friends. His name is Ken Trahan. You know him well here in the city of New Orleans. He does so much for our town. But let's just give it to Ken. Ken, thanks for coming, man.
Scott, it's good to be with you, and I wish I wasn't here as well.
I know.
No offense.
No offense. Listen, I know you were very close. The 3 Tailgater show was a show that you did with him for the last 6 years. He took Archie Manning's place, but you've known him for many, many years before that.
I met him in Chalmette in the 70s when I first started in the business, and he was a young coach, and I was a very young pup just out of high school and starting in the industry. And right away, he struck me as a very bright guy, a brash guy. He was confident in what he could do, but it wasn't cockiness. It was confidence, and there's a difference between the two. And Rick made his mark pretty quickly. Bill Chiamento gave him the reins at Chalmette, put in the wing tee offense, which he was incredibly fond of, and they took off. Then, of course, he got hired by Archbishop Rummel, by Easton Roth, and he went there for 3 years. And as he said, those were 3 of the best years of his life because he enjoyed the school, had a really good program with great kids, but his wife worked there. Right. She taught there for 11 years. So they were together every day, professionally, personally. And if you know their relationship, it was that special. Rick and Elaine, as you're looking at them, they were like that all the time. And that was a recent picture, by the way. And having said that, the opportunity to be together with him was special. So he loved that. Then he goes on from Rummel to Tulane, and he worked there under Vince Gibson and Wally English for 3 years. And Frank Monica highly recommended him, and he worked with Frank. They ended up being rivals for years at St. James and St. Charles Catholic after the fact. After the bad taste with Wally English, he got out of football, got into financial planning, and then got back into it with his friend Mike Villamaret, whom he met at Chalmette, and worked with Mike at Bonneville for 3 years, and then got the opportunity that he richly deserved and should have gotten a long time prior to that, a head coaching job at St. James. And St. James is a great program, and it's a really good community as well in the Vacherie area. But if you know that parish at all, Lutcher's the top dog.
Yes.
And St. James was always perceived to be second fiddle. Now, they'd had great success. They'd won championships in the past, but they were in a low period in football, not doing much of anything. Did he ever restore that? He did a remarkable job, as you mentioned, getting him to 3 state championship games. What defined him more than anything was his competitive nature and his preparedness. There was nothing like it on any level. As a golfer, as a coach, and as a media personality, he really fit the bill across the board with his level of preparation. I could tell a million stories, but the thing that gets my attention about Rick, and I got him involved with doing a TV show for us at WHNO, and As you mentioned, got him involved in doing the Three Tailgaters show, got him involved in doing high school games with us, and then got him involved with our website at CrescentCitySports.com. He did a phenomenal job in all aspects, but I think this defines him. He shows up for our prep show on Friday nights, which is statewide, and he'll have literally typed 50 pages of notes for that night, of which on the show he might use 1 or 2 for a 5-hour show because he's lucky to get a word in edgewise with all the reporters we have and games and scoreboards we have. But that's how prepared he was.
He was ready for anything.
He was ready for anything.
Exactly.
And that defined him, and I just loved it. So, as I've said many times, and I believe in, you build from within, you promote from within, you give people opportunities that work hard and deserve that. And I think the merit system is the one that I've lived by, and I believe in it wholeheartedly. When somebody proves to you that they can do something well, then you give them more opportunities.
Yes.
And that's what we did with Rick professionally. Take our friendship and separate that completely.
Sure.
Having known him as a coach, I entrusted him with one responsibility. He did a fantastic job, so I gave him another and another and another. And he loved it. He embraced it. And when you would ask him to come on television shows or radio shows, man, he ate that up. And that was the case with pretty much everybody in the marketplace and statewide. And oh, by the way, he has an incredible reputation around the state. The outpouring of love that has since emanated from his passing is incredible. It keeps happening every day, and I wouldn't be surprised if his services are just absolutely not only jam-packed, but out the door. I fully expect that to be the case because that's who Rick
Open to the public, correct?
Yeah, open to the public. Sunday visitation, 4 to 8 at Jacob Shane Funeral Home on Canal Street. And then a very devout Catholic man, he and his wife Elaine. And on Monday morning, there's visitation from 10 to noon at Ascension of Our Lord Church in LaPlace. And then the funeral service follows at noon. So I would fully expect it's going to be very, very crowded. He was admired and loved by so many people, and he touched so many lives across every boundary. As you mentioned, people don't even realize how he got started. He was a great golfer at East Jefferson High School.
Yes.
And
talk about that.
Was a champion golfer at East Jefferson High School when it hadn't happened before. And then, of course, he went on to UNO, and you mentioned it, LSUNO at the time as their first student athlete at the school, and he became an All-American, Hall of Fame golfer, everything else, unbelievable golf team that they had. I can name the names of guys then. I have a recollection of things pretty well, and I worked at UNO for quite some time. So he made his name there in incredible fashion, then goes on to win the amateur here in New Orleans. Could have been a professional golfer. He was easily good enough to do that, but he had another calling on his life, and he teetered in between, but there was no doubt that he wanted to coach and have an impact on young people, and he did. And life's lessons were learned and taught on a daily basis by Rick. It wasn't just about coaching. He wanted to make a difference in young people's lives, and oftentimes that meant discipline. And they didn't like it, but they like it now, I can assure you. One other thing I'll share about him is with regard to recruiting. He never lied to a recruiter.
Right.
When people would come in and say, I'm interested in Joey Smith, he would tell them, I don't think you really are because here's an issue off the field, or he's not really as good as you think he is. Or they'd come in and say, I'm interested in Joey Smith. He says, well, I really think you should be interested in Johnny Brown because Johnny has this quality, and that quality. And let me tell you something, recruiters appreciate that because so many people are what I call salesmen, or in some cases, snake oil salesmen, and they'll sell anybody anything, and then they get a dud or a lemon in the car business, and guess what? They're very unhappy down the road, and therefore they won't recruit one of your players in the future.
I did a nationwide show for 14 years. We talk to coaches all the time, and the college coaches expect me to tell them the truth. So I said, the high school coaches, well, he told me this, and he goes, but did he tell you the truth? I said, you don't know, but Rick always was that guy. By the way, kind of on another note, we have a great picture of him in the Super Bowl winning champion coach this year, Doug Peterson. Explain this picture right here.
Yeah, very interesting. They competed against each other on the high school level. Doug was at Calvary Baptist and Rick was at St. James, and they played each other. And by the way, Doug Peterson is one of the truly nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. I went up there in 2008 to do a state playoff game, semifinal game. John Curtis spent the whole day there. He toured the campus with us, treated us to lunch, and it was lambs being led to the slaughter because we all knew Curtis was going to kill them that night, and they did. And he even joked about it. He says, man, I feel like the Last Supper here, you know? So what a nice man. But Rick competed with Doug, and he just thought the world of it.
Both men of faith, too.
Both men of strong men of faith. And that, I think, the two things more than anything else, the professional aspect we've discussed, but the two most important aspects in Rick's life were his faith and his wife, Elaine. 39 years of marriage, dedicated to each other, always together. The love there was incredible. I was so blessed to know that Rick, but I'm blessed to know Elaine now. And having had a chance to visit him a few days before he died was special to me. She wanted me to do it, and I wanted to do it. I didn't care what he looked like or was like. And the fact that he was able to rise one last time, it's the last day he was able to rise, by the way. He hugged me and told me he loved me, and did the same thing with Ed Daniels, and it was very difficult to walk away. It was goodbye, and we knew it. But the last thing I'll say about it absolutely was the Three Tailgaters show. Erroneous reports of his passing on Saturday morning. He not only was alive, he was listening to the show. And Elaine told me he managed to crack a smile even though he couldn't speak.
This past Saturday?
This past Saturday.
Wow.
He died the next
Wow.
day. But he heard us talking about him, and we were giving him grief for playing hooky for not being on the show.
Yeah.
So he got a big kick out of that. But a very special person. You and I were both blessed to know him. We love him deeply, and I know that God has a special place for him. I believe that with all my heart as a man of faith.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind either, and I wish I had more time to talk about this. You say he affected young people's lives. He obviously affected older people's lives too, because I just keep thinking about all the times he told me he loved me out of the blue, and he just would call. And I mean, you were 10 times closer than I was, but he had that effect on all of us. But here, this is from Task.
Okay.
If you haven't worn Task before, this
Yep.
is the best feeling stuff I've ever put on my body.
I'm good with it.
And you're good with it, huh? And this
If it's comfortable, I love it.
This is Shays Delachey's right there
Thank
on
you.
Maple Street.
Appreciate you, Scott. You
Okay.
do a great job. I appreciate your friendship.
No, I appreciate you too. And I don't even know how to close the show now because you can obviously see I'm in tears. But Rick, we love you, brother. Hey, a lot of people to thank for this show. A lot of people. Everybody over at WLAE in particular. Will Hill, Naila. Hey, we got Taylor Harrington in the house today. We also have the Redhead Tsunami. Hey, everybody at CST as well. Thank you very much. And happy 4th of July. We shall see you again next week. Don't forget, Coach O and the governor of Louisiana are coming in 2 weeks. We'll be back then. We'll be back next week. We're here. Take care.